Welcome to the first episode of Creativity Knows No Borders. My name is Dylan Espiri, and I'm your host.
This podcast was made possible through the support of Africa No Filter, a sponsored project of the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, with funding provided by GIZ on behalf of the government of the Federal Republic of Germany.
On today's episode, being the first, we feature the amazing Allen Coleman, who is a finance dude, amazing illustrator, amazing fashion guy. Did some travel across the continent, did some really insightful stories to share. Welcome to the podcast, Allen.
So I'm Allen Coleman. I am a financial advisor and a self-taught illustrator. On my rounds on the continent has mainly been through work from the financial part. Creatively, I think I have been able to sort of navigate a community via like the different platforms, especially through Joburg, to be honest. My parents lived in Pretoria for quite a while, and so that was my introduction to South Africa. But outside family visits, I think it was after 2015 that I really got into sort of navigating the creative community. I have seen, I've been to Nigeria, I've been to Kenya. Sadly, I haven't been able to do as many countries as I'd wish. I think my next my wish list is to see Senegal. Senegal is one of the places. I was in Senegal for 24 hours. So I don't count it as a real visit, so it's still on my list.
Hey, you got that stamp.
I did. I think I was en route to Cape Verde, and I just did 24 hours. It was a beautiful 24 hours, but I just don't feel like I saw enough of the cities to say I've been there. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm interested with the Ghanaian passport. How does it rank? Is it an easy passport to travel across the continent with, or do you guys get some pushback like us in Zimbabweans sometimes?
Apart from everyone asking you about the soccer team, I think it's pretty much the same since like I've always been jealous of my friends that just like travel anywhere like they want to
Yeah.
by part of their passport. And I firsthand had got the chance to experience that with this latest initiative from between Ghana and South Africa, where you're able to spend 90 days without a visa, going to apply for a visa, uh, which was experiencing that. It was like, oh, so this is how everyone feels. I can't describe the joy of ease. It's like just jump. I could literally book a flight this Friday and fly out to Johannesburg, which 2 years ago that wasn't the case. And so that's
Yeah.
pretty much been. I think we can also. I think with the Ghanaian passport, you can also do Kenya, um,
Okay.
and Nigeria. I think you can do Kenya. So those two countries, just being able to just up and leave, it has been quite, refreshing. Outside that, I think that's probably the only upside. For the rest of the continent, I think you go through the same procedure of applying for a visa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think Zimbabwe has a few countries like that also where you can up and leave, like South Africa. I think Botswana now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Most of the side, like
Mm,
where we can just go
mm.
without necessarily
I
applying
think
for visa and
Ghanaians
stuff.
we need a visa to go to Botswana.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's crazy. That's interesting.
yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that you've been traveling through like mostly from a financial role, basically.
Mm.
So your job takes you off the continent. What is it like then in that kind of capacity when you then travel to these different countries? Because you're in the financial space, is there more? I would say freedom to move around because you're in a respected position in a respected job. Does that give you some ounce of freedom when you're traveling then? Because you're going for work.
Yes, I think when it comes to applying for visas and whatnot, it's pretty much easier. But in terms of
Yeah.
when you hit the ground and you're exploring the city, I think it's no different apart from just being caught up in that sort of financial bubble where you don't really get to. So sometimes I would visit a city and not necessarily be able to indulge as much. But in terms of travel process, yes. I think when it comes to corporate, um, I think governments are really very much in tune with trade routes and move of revenue. And so when it has to do with business, I think there's a priority that's given to, okay, if you're here to do business, then okay, then it's much easier. I think even the turnaround time for visa applications for business visas is different. I've always been on a business visa to South Africa prior to the 90-day visa for Ghanaians.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I guess you can leverage that to really move around as you please on the continent, so which is great because I mean I guess there's more respect to business than creativity. Have you ever tried to travel then um, on your own as a creative and then have any challenges?
To be honest, I think going anywhere outside these borders, and I'm talking Ghana, as a creative, also even here as a creative, like navigating spaces as a creative, it doesn't come with that much respect. And so all the time, I keep telling friends in Ghana that going to South Africa, there's a refreshing perspective on how creatives live in South Africa. There's so much opportunity and potential. So it's I know kids sit here and dream via Instagram and want it to be this and that. But being in South Africa and seeing somewhat of a Trevor Sturman or other creators like full budding creatives making a living and actually um, being successful, it's sort of refreshing to see. So I think traveling as a creative, yeah, you probably get the hard end of the wood as anyone trying to, maybe even harder, because then you have to have proof of funds, the reason why you're traveling. You're basically going as a tourist. I don't know if anyone's flying anyone in on a special skills visa. So if I was to go as a creative, it means I'm funding everything myself. And yeah, the code sell for self-funded travelers is really not that high.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Now, you mentioned a lot about South Africa, so I'm assuming then, in terms of creative inspiration, you'd pick that as a top country for yourself, and or is it more Kenya? Where do you find I would say the most interesting or like inspiration in terms of travel when it comes to the creative industries across the continent?
Definitely South Africa. I used to spend my summers. I had places that I'd love to go to during the summers until I discovered Johannesburg. And this is just answering your question on where I'd pick. And as much as I've
Yeah,
seen other countries, I think it's seeing versions of myself. It's because the first I used to my parents lived in Pretoria and they basically didn't really go anywhere, didn't have any community outside the Ghanaian community that they had in Pretoria. So my visits to South Africa was basically to see my parents and go back home. And I never really indulged making any friends anywhere. It was just by chance that I discovered Johannesburg through a friend, a Facebook friend who um, suggested to host me for a day because my parents and I missed our flights and I had to wait in Joburg for a day. And she took me to Braamfontein, and that was like my okay. This is just seeing versions of myself. I'm like, okay. To me, it felt like a African version of downtown New York, and I was like, okay, I haven't seen this side anywhere before. Let alone Africa. And so this South Africa became sort of my, I think I just felt, I felt, I didn't feel like I didn't belong. I just saw people with the same skin color as me, same stories, even though different countries, but it was just like easier. So yes, I would definitely pick Johannesburg over a lot of options.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'm with you there. I've been tempted to travel, to move to somewhere else, but I always get
Mm,
like now I'm not in Johannesburg. I'm in Nelspruit, but I do miss Johannesburg's approach to community and just all around creative energy, the feeling
yeah,
of possibility. I think Johannesburg offers you
yeah,
that compared to other
yes,
cities on the continent.
yes, yes. And
Yeah,
it's really funny that sometimes I hear people in Joburg also have this narrative of, oh man, I'm tired of Joburg and I want to go. I want to travel. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But sometimes I feel like people in Joburg might, South Africa might need to see other countries to see how refreshing. Sometimes you need to leave to see how good you have it. Even going to
yes,
South Africa and visiting other countries, I'm sort of in like the second. I don't know how to explain this, but I'm falling in love with Ghana all over again. Just because I'm going so many places, and as much as I'm discovering new things, I'm also discovering just how different we are as a people, and also the things that I take for granted. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I wish Ghanaians would come to South Africa and get inspired and go back home, and I wish South Africans would go to Ghana and come back and feel like, oh, you know, we actually have something. Um, and then also be inspired because people see things differently. The same way I love Johannesburg, there might be someone who's in Johannesburg who doesn't feel inspired or feels like there's nothing around to inspire them. Feels like everything is backward. I've heard that narrative before. Sometimes I wish I could just hold people by their shoulders and be like, I need you to see the other places and you might find a new love for where you're from.
yeah. No, that's very true. Yeah, I see it whenever I get to travel, even back to Zim. Like I fall in love with South Africa because that's all I really know now. But also I get to see a new energy of what I could do back in my own home country, and I think that's what travel does. It really
Mm,
opens up the doors, and in your mind basically on possibility. And I think, like you mentioned, a lot of South African creators really do need to travel to see what they have, but also to
true,
discover new ideas and new inspirations and new
true.
opportunities. You never know. You know, sometimes you're successful,
No.
not successful in South Africa, but you might find success in other countries and stuff on the continent. And I think that
Mm, mm.
I'm seeing a few creators doing that where they find success elsewhere on the continent, which is great. And I think we need more of
Yeah,
that, like you mentioned. Yeah, yeah.
definitely, definitely,
And
definitely.
you mentioned in your work as a creative now, are you getting a lot of cross-border collaborations across the continent? And what are you finding is interesting when you do collaborations with people in different parts of the continent?
Well, to be honest, when it comes to the creative side, I think I'm still trying to find my foot. Um,
Yeah,
I have been sort of like a contributor. I like to add on, and so even so I work with a brand here in Ghana, and we're trying to break into Kenya. I think the continents we're extremely curious about each other, but however, I don't think there's like platforms and bridges that does that. Even though there's social media, we kind of
yeah,
observe each other, but not necessarily engaging, which I think is pretty sad. You don't find the collaborative work. I think Africa needs more of that. And that's why I'm in love with the few brands that sort of reach outside their borders, whether it be music, photography, or just like pulling from fashion. I'd really, really love seeing that. So I think we definitely need more of that. Everyone's sort of observing and not engaging. I wish flights were easier, were cheaper, and visa processes were also easier. So we could do sort of like the relationship between Ghana and Nigeria. We tend to consume a lot of their culture because of proximity. You have a lot of Nigerian schooling in Ghana. Um, I don't think there's a big song in Nigeria that's not big here, but there could be a big song in Kenya that will probably never make it to Ghana. And same way, I think those avenues, the same way you might get um, trends and culture and just like perspective also just getting missing in that. So yeah.
Yeah. No, no, definitely. I think you're right. I mean, growing up in Zimbabwe, because of proximity to South Africa, whatever was big in South Africa was big in Zim. But funny
Mm.
enough, whatever was in Mozambique was never big in Zim also. So it's quite interesting how, I
It's
guess,
because of
different.
people, no? Because people travel.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because in Ghana,
that
we
ease of
sort of
movement.
had the same thing where we'd travel. It was a big thing to travel during uni days to the UK. And so
Yeah,
we'd come back and the summers would be filled with a lot, like the playlists on radio and our parties will have a lot of British music. And I think
yeah,
it's people. Once you have these two, once people move to and fro from one end to another, you definitely find that mix where people are going back and saying, "This is the song that I was playing when I was in Ghana. Or this is the song that I was playing when I was in Nigeria." Or same with South Africa now.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I guess like say, traveling is a key component.
very
Physically being
much,
available in spaces
very much,
is paramount to success for everybody. Um,
very much.
with social media as a new form of travel, I guess now you mentioned that if someone hosted you because they were a Facebook friend, right?
Yes.
How do you see social media playing a role in a more open border Africa, basically? Because you see Amapiano is growing across the continent through social media. Content is growing, photography, music, art, design, because of social media. It's almost like a non-physical travel. How important has it been for you, like social media influencing your work in terms of that kind of cross-border work? And how do you think we can better leverage social media for a more open continent?
I think there's a lot of potential. Social media has made everything so small. With a few taps, your algorithm can like basically change, and you can be getting like content from Asia or from home or from Kenya if you like three posts, and you get to explore different pockets of the continent. I think somehow, like I said, it's still a very much place where we're just observing each other. I think it could
Yeah,
be a platform where we use that to engage. I've always said this, and I always say this to the businesses that I work with. Like you need to be able to create a business outside Instagram. For some reason, Instagram has become the beginning and end for a lot of initiatives, and you can do anything in that space. But I think it should go, especially for the continent, it should go beyond that. It's great to meet. I met this person off of. I think it should be. I met this person off of Facebook, but I actually sat in front of this person,
yeah,
and we interacted. So now it's just not experiencing Joburg from afar. It's smelling. I can smell Joburg. It's funny. People will buy a fragrance and say this reminds me of Japan because they've been there. So I think it's as a first base, it's great. A lot of people, I'm sure kids are learning dances every day that just off of social media and not having to actually jump on a plane. But I think that the experience would definitely be different if they were to fly in and actually be um like in the mix. I was talking to a friend and she would ask me all the time, "Why do you love Johannesburg so much?" And I told him like, as much as you consume the culture online, there's nothing like being there. Like nobody parties the way people in Johannesburg party, and it's not just I don't know how to describe it, but it's an energy thing where everyone is so happy. And that's one thing also, like I never see people so consumed by just like having fun. It's so infectious. And she made the trip. And she called me one time. She's like, I just want to call and apologize for arguing with you because I've been in South Africa for a week and I haven't stopped smiling just because I've been doing back to back parties, and it's not about drinking and it's not about having the most expensive place in corner in the section, but it's just this infectious thing. And I was like, yes, this is what we need. I think we're gonna go back to everyone having to want to touch the fabric of a society, actually being there, um, going to places that you've seen. Um, Now I'm on YouTube half the time looking at travel vlogs. it's great because it's sort of a connection. But I hope it goes full circle while I'm actually able to visit these spots and feel like I know it. I already know half of it. There's certain countries that I know, okay, this is the first thing I'm eating as soon as I land. So as a platform, I think it's great as a beginner for us to observe each other. But I think other parties have to contribute for us to actually really engage and see
Yeah,
the potential of collaborating. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's very true. There's definitely a couple of countries where I know what I'm going to eat when I get there. The first thing, uh, and I can already imagine it. And funny enough, in Africa,
Right.
how I normally travel is I avoid flying in Africa. I'm still I'll fly anywhere else, but in Africa, I really
But why
only
though?
want to travel by bus, because by bus you get to really you get to really experience a true border. Because I think
True.
at an airport there's a certain level of class
Mm,
to it. So it's like, oh, you're here because we know you can afford it. But on a bus, I think no one really cares about your affordability. It's like, why are you really here, right? And also, you get to really get to hear the languages, the different nuances of the country itself. I remember traveling. I was going from Zim to Malawi. I passed through Mozambique, and I took like I think 3 or 4 buses in between. I didn't know
mm,
those places. I didn't know the people were there and all that kind of stuff between those countries and all that kind of stuff. But I really
amazing.
got to experience Mozambique like I've never done before. Like the true Mozambique, like people speak like only speaking Portuguese, assuming I'm
Mm.
Portuguese too. But they were so hospitable. I said, I'm from Zimbabwe, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. Take this bus, and then you get there. It's not safe there. Quickly get another bus." And all. When I was in Malawi,
You know what?
it was so interesting
Still,
on the ground.
you're saying all this, and I'm picturing this in my head, and it goes back to what you were asking me about social media. I think coverage. Um,
Yeah,
Back then you would hear about certain countries because of maybe their football team or if there's like a tragedy. Now everyone can literally document where they are. I'm telling you, if you
yes,
had a few people vlog about the bus routes in Africa and the beautiful parts of traveling um by border, you would find people opting to use the bus routes than actually flying because
yes,
someone's like, you can have this sort of snacks when you get here. This is like a beautiful landscape view. For bus, it's just as you're speaking, I'm like, okay, if you hadn't done it, there's no way this is getting out. And if you had documented it, someone will also be like, you know what, I actually want to see all the countries in the south by bus. And maybe that would also start a way of letting, because our geography is also very different to the developed states that we've so used that are covered
yes,
extensively. So maybe
yeah.
things like this, as these conversations grow, you might find people exploring the continent this way.
On the ground. Yeah, there's one lady. I think it's called. Her name is Poppy. I
I
don't know if you've
follow
seen her.
her. I follow her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I've traveled like her, but I just never vlogged it. Right. I'm not a vlogging person, but when I saw her doing that, I was like, damn, I should do this more often. I should
Right?
document real life experiences across the border, because
Mm.
being on the ground, there's something beautiful about being on the ground. Because I remember when I went to Mozambique, when I was going to Malawi, the area I traveled through is considered one of the most dangerous areas to travel through, but on land, right?
Oh
But
wow.
when I was there, it wasn't. But because of media and because there's been a couple of incidences there, even my own family was like,
Mm.
"What the hell are you doing?" They were so scared for me, like they wanted me to report every minute because they were so scared.
And this
And I
could have
think
been based off of just one incident.
yes, and it was based off a couple of incidences, but never really. It wasn't necessarily a day-to-day lived experience for everybody in the
Mm.
area. It was one or two flaps here and there, and that really changed my perspective on traveling on the ground. So I want to do more of that. And Poppy is really, I'm jealous of her because she does it so well. Yeah, she does it so well. So I think that, like I
Yeah,
said,
she
we need to
does. She
document and
does.
show, yeah,
Mm.
and show the lived reality of traveling on the ground. 'Cause a flight is great and nice, but I just like just be on. In
I
Africa,
think
for
a
me, I
flight is
have to be on the ground.
convenient. That's what it is. A flight is
Yes,
convenient when it comes to time. If you have deadlines or it's a business meeting, you need to be somewhere. But I
yes,
like, I asked you in the beginning but I didn't think through it. I think for a real traveler, I would definitely opt to to do a bus route. That would be really nice if I don't have to
Yeah,
be somewhere at a particular time. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's very true. That's very true. And then the question
Mm.
of there's this idea of that everyone's kind of been talking about the African passport, right?
Mm.
As a creative, as a person in the finance space and as an entrepreneur, do you, as also as a fashion person, do you think an African passport opens up possibilities, or do you think it's just an unnecessary endeavor, just more for changing mindset that's required? What are your thoughts on this idea of an African passport that kind of opens up the entire continent?
Oh, I think there's I don't think it's as easy as people say. But that would be beautiful. I think even for now, just to see the amount of people going to South Africa, there's definitely going to be business opportunities that's going to happen between these two countries. People will definitely identify needs and wants in both countries. I just hope it doesn't become a one-sided thing where we get Ghanaians going to South Africa all year long, and then we get South Africans coming to Ghana only during December. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, I think exploring will definitely get the right people on um in the respective countries. At some point, it would make sense. I mean, if we all realize that, wait, I can go to Kenya, then I start looking at what is nightlife in Kenya like. After I've done Senegal, and there's also a lot of commerce. That means there's a lot of money that's going to be moving between countries, and I think that's a good thing. The whole world, I think everyone's talking about trade routes and access. So that's one thing that we should be capitalizing on. We should be moving goods, ideas, trading, even culture. Also seeing how similar, like my last trip to South Africa, I was working with the creative who was showing me these traditional symbols, and I was like, I had no idea you guys also had your symbols. And it was very, very familiar to the symbols in Ghana. And I was like, wow, like we have good PR when it comes to that. You find people getting
Yes.
tattoos, making jewelry, and it's such a hot thing. You go even to in South Africa, you go to markets and you still see Ghanaian symbols. And I was so surprised. And it's this is part of travel, just like seeing a version of yourself in another jurisdiction, like in another area, is so refreshing. And a great learning ground. So yes, I think an African passport would be great. Once people start moving, you'll see a lot of things will be. We'll probably realize how alike we all are. Um, Also heal each other, experience each other, which I think we're sort of doing online, but not, as I say, in person. We're not doing that.
Yeah. No, that's very true. We definitely need to heal each other because we are so alike.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, we are
I noticed, yeah, as I go and the travel and stuff, is that we are so alike. I just wish we just knew it. And I think,
exactly.
like you mentioned, by traveling, we can be able to really reinforce that idea that
Yes,
we are
and it
so alike.
changes everything. Like if our fly
Yeah.
routes change, your businesses, even like ports, and realizing, okay, we're getting a lot of stuff from Ghana. Let's subsidize this so that we can actually move goods between these two countries. I think it brings a lot, and it starts with the boots on the ground. It's just like
Yes.
as soon as the people start flooding in and they start exchanging, you find out now I have to send a girl money in South Africa, or now I have to send a business partner money. Now someone's gonna have a payment system. Even now, as it stands now, sending money from Ghana to South Africa is a headache. One of the banks just recently launched an app that allows you to send money across the continent. I don't know if, to be honest, I don't even know if South Africa's on there, but people actually have this business of I'll send someone rands in South Africa and then you send me the cities. There's no intermediary there. Even though there are few, you're basically paying. I think it's above 50, a percentage of what you're sending. So that also
Yeah.
deters you from sending anything, and it doesn't help with business. So once the people start connecting, you will find out that businesses will come and make um sort of revenue out of the needs of these people. So now I'm traveling to South Africa and I need something. When I'm coming back, I probably need to ship something. I want to bring something. I think it's great. I think we need to start trading with ourselves. I think that if Africa is dependent on itself, that would be such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think a very interdependent continent is what we need, where we're really looking at ourselves because we have everything,
Very
right?
much.
Yet,
Yeah.
yet we export we export and then import a lot of things that
Yeah.
we should already have and be able to make on our own. And I think we're seeing a bit of a movement towards that, being more independent in
Mm-hmm.
our converting our raw materials into things that we can actually use and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And
Yes.
hopefully we can scale. And like I mentioned, through travel, we can scale with that kind of thinking. And I think we
Definitely.
need more of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no. Thank you so much. That's about it from my side. It's
Oh,
very
great.
insightful to hear you travel,
Thank you.
and see and your thoughts. So I mean, we're on the same page when it
Yeah.
comes to movement and stuff on the continent. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Dylan. Thank you so much for having me.
This podcast was made possible through the support of Africa No Filter, a sponsored project of the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, with funding provided by GIZ on behalf of the government of the Federal Republic of Germany. Now, if you're like me, are into creativity, borders, travel, and tech, and a better Africa, please subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and follow me, Dylan Espiri, on Instagram, Twitter, and all the platforms, and let me know your thoughts on borders. Thanks for listening. Until the next episode, stay blessed.